What if the secret to growing the most incredible plants, like this incredible fig, can be found inside this tank? A miniature wetland ecosystem that may have accidentally created the most explosive plant growth I've ever seen.
But first, I want to show you what happened when I used the same wetland concept to build a real fruit tree orchard. And in 2022, I created a project for a customer on this exact premise. The problem was this property was located on a lake, and this customer wanted to grow food in the wettest part of his yard, in the flood zone. Some fruit trees like this avocado absolutely hate having wet feet, so instead of trying to drain the water away, we decided to work with it. We solved this by building huge raised berms above the flood zone, allowing moisture and nutrients to slowly wick upward from the lake without keeping roots submerged in water. And over the next few years, this orchard exploded.
All of the trees here are doing amazing.
But one plant in particular responded unlike anything I'd seen before.
This fig.
This fig tree became the absolute best fig tree I've seen in person, and it did this in only 4 years. It started out as a small 3-gallon plant and was pretty unimpressive. It even survived Hurricane Ian 5 months later, which flooded the area for 2 weeks. Most trees survived, but we did lose a few. But this fig tree didn't just survive, it thrived.
If I had to guess, there's probably 300 to 500 figs on this tree. And you can see the size of this trunk. It's incredible that this is only a few years old. And there is no insect damage, and there is no fungal disease, pest disease at all. So this tank mimics the same conditions the lake property provided. But what about these conditions is so beneficial for plants?
Well, every day leaves fall into the lake, fish create waste, worms near shore break things down, and the entire environment quietly recycles nutrients back into the system.
Which is exactly what's happening inside this tank. It's a Florida blackwater ecosystem. And the coolest part is it's part aquatic and part terrestrial.
And we call this land and water type of tank a paludarium, which is a living ecosystem filled with native Florida life, including plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, and insects, all constantly interacting with each other.
And let's not forget fish, as they're one of the most important aspects of the system, because fish are constantly creating waste. And while most people think of waste as pollution, nature sees it completely differently. Tiny organisms we can't even see begin to transform that waste into nutrients that plants use in order to grow and thrive. And these plants become the filter, pulling nutrients out of the water in order to fuel growth. And this is deeply necessary because too many nutrients and imbalance and toxicity would follow. So plants keep the whole system balanced. And as a result, we get massive plant growth. But fish and aquatic life are only part of the equation, because above the waterline, another army is working. Nature's terrestrial decomposers. Worms, millipedes, and insects are breaking down leaves, wood, and organic material, turning yesterday's waste into tomorrow's growth. And this got me thinking, if nature's wetland ecosystem could create trees like this on a lake, could I scale that process down and speed up the timeline and grow plants without any synthetic fertilizer? But I wanted to make it even harder. Could the same system work with a tree that's trapped inside a container? Well, if you saw my last video, I conducted this exact experiment with the 3 figs in pots off of my back porch. And the results were staggering. The 2 figs on the ends were watered with regular hose water, and they were still given compost and worm castings at the beginning of the season. But this fig in the middle has grown more than 3 times larger than the other figs. The difference was I watered it only using the blackwater from the Paladarium tank. And this tree received so much nutrition from this tank water that it exploded in growth. Between all the fish waste, the worm fertilizer, fungi, bacteria, and all the humic and fulvic acids from that water gave this plant the energy to grow so extremely tall, and also it pushed a root straight through the bottom of the pot, which also helped to grow even larger. And this tree has somewhere between 50 and 75 fruit on it, while these smaller end figs only have 1 or 2. And it took me a moment to realize that once this tank was built, it's fully regenerative. I just needed to understand how best to use it. When I first added water, it was crystal clear, but because of all the organic matter and all the living material inside here, the water ends up turning brown, almost black. And I became annoyed by this. What I came to realize is this tank is a perpetual fertilizer machine. So about once a week I do a water change in the tank, and I use this to water my plants. And it makes them grow massive, just like the fruit trees at the lake. So we know this wetland lake water strategy works for figs, but what about other fruit trees? Like plums. Check out this plum behind me and how absolutely packed it is with fruit. Or bananas. And check out the size of these bananas behind me. They are absolutely thriving in this environment. They love the wet, they love a lot of organic matter, which is exactly what this soil has, being so close to this lake. In fact, it's grown so crazy. You can see here at the base, this giant mound where all the stems are coming out from has busted our cedar wood right out. And there's some damage here that actually has to be fixed. These grapes are also only a few years old. You can see how strong the trunk is, and there's already a ton of grapes coming. This mulberry behind me is doing very good as well and producing nice fruit. It's a dwarf everbearing mulberry. Check out this trunk. This mulberry tree is only 3 or 4 years old. Now I know it's hard to tell from your perspective, but this area is super saturated. We had about 1.5 inches of rain yesterday, and look at this. Wow. It is just soaked over here. So that's why we built up along these raised berms. Higher elevation than the super soaked land over here, but still able to access the water underneath it when it needs it. And so the hydrology of this area is going to continue underground. And so these plant roots are able to reach down and grab that lake water, which is incredible, just like the tank that we built at home. So if you have a low-lying and wet area of your property where you don't think you can do anything with it, why not try this method? You won't even have to irrigate the plants. And in low-lying areas like this lake, we have incredible soils. There's a lot of organic matter, all of that organic matter cycling nutrients for your plants. Now this may seem obvious, but certain plants are going to be way better suited for this wetland environment, like this Brazilian grape tree. I have this large jaboticaba or Brazilian grape tree, and it loves a lot of water. It would be the perfect fit for this environment. But I would not recommend anything that is sensitive to excessive moisture, like for example this dragon fruit or these olive trees. I would not use those. Same thing for avocados. So you must do your own research. Plants that are water loving are going to do great, just like this guava tree here. But you do have to make sure that your berms are high enough to get it up and out of the floodplain. You cannot have these plants sitting in muck and water. Now what we actually want is that groundwater invisibly wicking up through the soil, moving against gravity, so the plants have access to the water whenever they need it. But we don't want them so low that the bottom of the root ball is actually submerged in the water. If the high point of the groundwater table typically comes to this portion, you'd want to be above that, well above that, so this water is wicking up through the berms. So there's no universal answer about what height to set your tree at. Each property is going to be different. Your property may flood more than your neighbor's property, so check your groundwater table and check your mean high water line if you have that information available. So make sure you pick the correct plants for the situation, but don't just look at the water. Also consider the sun, the wind, and any other microclimates that are particular to that area. So the tank is acting just like this lake, providing tons of nutrition through the water, cycling nutrients, and providing habitat for all the wildlife. It's been incredible seeing the rate of growth and production from these fruit trees in such a short period of time. 4 years ago, that fig tree was just a tiny 3-gallon plant. Today, it's a tree covered in fruit and producing more figs than most people would think is possible. When we learn to work with nature instead of against it, amazing things can happen.